Hi everyone, welcome to our next webinar. I've got the fantastic Tracy from Comfort Zone back with me again. We've obviously talked after our last webinar and we've decided that we wanted to talk around key performance indicators. Thank you, Tracy, for coming and joining me again.
Absolute pleasure. Always happy to help.
Thank you. I mean, we know it's business is tough as always. We've been talking about it, but the way really to drive your business is to better understand your key performance indicators and use those to drive your strategic business decisions. We're both super passionate about them. So I'm going to hand over to you, Tracy, as we're going to take a bit of a deeper delve into some of the KPIs that you are most commonly asked about.
Amazing. Thank you. So I've put together a little presentation here based around a lot of the KPIs and the discussions that our business managers, spa trainers and myself are having with our partners across the UK. I think in the economic world that we're in today, the things that we have always done previously are being challenged, and we've
Yeah.
got to find more strategic ways of being able to grow our top line and protect the bottom line. And to do that, I think we have to be clear on KPIs that are going to help both of those areas of the business perform to its optimum. And I think from our point of view, sort of just moving on to slide one, I think it's important for our salon and spa partners to really understand why they need to look at KPIs and what the best KPIs are to be analysed. And I think it's a minefield out there, as we all know, and you and I have discussed this before. There are so many different KPIs that could be looked at. It's
Yeah.
really understanding which are the best ones to spend time analysing and really working on to make a difference that are going to affect the business most strategically. And I think when we're talking to spa directors or spa owners, I think the first thing is in their busy day, understanding why they need to make time to look at the KPIs. And I think the first thing is they need to find a way, once they've understood the KPIs that are relevant to their business and their long-term and short-term goals, to find a way of being able to track them that's easy, and so the time and effort doesn't coming into putting the information together. It's being able to analyze the information, so finding a system for them to be able to track easily the KPIs for their business. Obviously, from their point of view, once they have this information and the data, being able to drill down into that is going to help them make the decisions for the future that are going to help take that business forward. Most importantly, at the moment, about protecting the bottom line and protecting that profitability. But also, as we know, it helps if we understand our KPIs for our individual businesses well. It helps us motivate and develop and support our teams through education or other means for
Yeah.
them to be able to be the best therapists they can be. So this is really about longevity of our staff and team morale within the business. It also helps us understand the clients that are now coming through the business, through the doors, who we had 5-10 years ago pre-COVID may not be the customer that's coming through our doors now, and what they want from us might not be what we thought they wanted from
Yeah.
us five
Yeah.
or 10 years ago. So I think it's really important to understand where the business now is now and what has changed. And ultimately, all of this is about helping to grow their business, both top line and bottom line. And I think the conversations we're having as a spa partner is very much we're here to help our businesses succeed, to grow their top line, to grow their bottom line. And of course, if we do this as a partnership together and we become a support or another arm for that business where people can ask us questions and find out what's best, best in practice, what other people are finding. Our job, I believe, is here to be able to support the businesses with these KPIs and share best practice. And I hope that's what today gives.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that you touched on there is that quite often in the past I've heard I need to complete this spreadsheet, I get my data, I put it in and I give my KPIs. But actually I think a lot of spa managers need to take back the ownership of the KPI. Who's the KPI for? You're not doing it just to plug and play and pass on to the finance team. They're actually your important tools to looking at your business decisions. Like you're saying, the guest that you had 10 years ago or pre-COVID is probably not the same guest that you're getting today. But without actually having the data, analyzing where are you getting your guests from, what channel are they using to book, you're kind of guiding a ship blindfolded.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree. So what I've tried to do is break this down into a few different channels. So looking at our hotel, residential, day spa, and destination spa partners, the first thing that we talk about a lot is the hotel guest capture rate, and I think for many junior spa managers or recently promoted spa managers who have been highly successful therapists and then moving into the next step in their career progression may not be aware of what a hotel guest capture rate is.
Mm.
And so for us, part of our role is to be able to help be the link between the general manager or the finance director and the spa manager in joining some of these dots up. And so for the hotel guest capture rate, as we know, this is, looking at and recording and anticipating how we get the hotel guests that are in the bedrooms down into the spa. How many of those guests are we capturing? And I think this is a really key one for any hotel businesses, in that as we know, it's hard to get customers through our door these days. It's such a competitive market. And we do a lot with our spa break partners and, our local guests and members and day spa guests. But we have this whole database of guests that are staying at the hotel. And this is an enormous opportunity to look at together as a spa brand and a spa operator. What can we do to communicate with those guests to help improve the number of those guests that are coming from the hotel down into the spa?
Yeah.
I know this was a big one for you, Sarah, when you were operating spas. It's such I was going to say easy revenue for the business if you can tap into it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot that I've been seeing where people are looking to take the spa into the bedroom to kind of close that gap, where people see spa as like this separate facility and you leave the hotel and you go into the spa. I think there's a lot now about bringing the spa into the hotel room so that the guest, even if they haven't booked the spa, they're a business guest, has a touch of spa and thinks, actually, maybe I want to go in. Like we're seeing, like people talking about your wellness mini bar. There's lots you can do, but you need to be tracking that reference point. Like, what is your hotel guest capture rate? Because they're sat there. They should be coming in. How can you get them in, booking a treatment, booking an experience, and getting them in there to help you with your revenue? Because everything else, like spa breaks, these sort of third parties, they cost money. When you've got your guests
Absolutely.
in the hotel, you should be maximizing them. And the other thing that I'm on a thing about at the moment is online booking. you know, can you book your spa treatment when they're booking their room booking? There's some cool stats about 30-40% of guests are booking in the evening. When your reception is shut, you can't talk about spa treatments, so they need to be accessible online. So I think there's loads that you can do once you know what your guest capture rate is. You've got lots of different levers you can pull with, like online booking, bringing the spa into the room. So if you're not looking at this and you've got a spa attached to a hotel, you're missing a really good opportunity, I think.
Absolutely, and this is what we're here to brainstorm those ideas and suggestions, and I really would recommend to everyone to lean on their brand partners to see what we can do collaboratively together, and whether that's something like commercial reception training, or whether it is looking at all the opportunities for in-room marketing, bath butlers, all the turn down services, all the other things that we can do. And as you say, that online piece is phenomenally important. What
Mm,
I'll do, Sarah, there's a lot of different KPIs here. So
all of them.
I think what we can do is maybe pick out the big ones here. I mean, all these would be my top 10, top 11 KPIs if I was still operating spa. And I think depending on the type of spa that we're talking about, whether it's a day spa, whether it's a residential spa, whether it's a city spa, whether it's a resort, whether you have membership, and obviously ultimately how the performance is going and where you want to be taking the business, different KPIs here are going to be more important for different types of business. I think the
Mhm.
first thing for the spa manager director is to understand what these are, and then to be able to, for their particular business, decide which are the key measurables that they want to use for their business. It's not necessarily the case that they would look at all 11 of these, 10 or 11 of these every day.
Mhm.
And when you were operating, which was the, apart from hotel guest capture rate, which is almost that low hanging fruit, that easy business that we can take, which would be key KPIs that you would have pulled out?
Definitely mix of business because that affects your
Mm,
costs. So we would always look at mix of
mm,
businesses, massage facials, um,
mm.
therapist utilization, because obviously that's your diary yielding. We'd look for at least 75% on most days where possible. And
Yes,
of course, retail sales. Those would be the main
absolutely.
ones that I would look at with the team. So we would do like our spa management team. I would look at us membership, the head therapist, treatments manager, and we would each would own their own, and then we drill down into them. Obviously, then on the side looking at things like cost of sales, but retail, therapist utilization, and mix of business were kind of the ones to look at driving.
Absolutely. But I think what we're finding at the moment, especially this year, since the new implications for tax for our staff have really kicked in since April 1st.
Yeah.
Payroll as a percentage of spa turnover is a big one, because they are, if you like, fixed costs that are going to affect all of our businesses because we're so people heavy as an industry. This has changed quite a lot since pre-COVID, and certainly within the past few years, in terms of what it's costing us to have fantastic therapists and fantastic members within our team. And actually, as we know, investing in our people, in their education, and all the benefits that people expect and require as a good people operator, are weighing very heavy on our operations, and actually are now quite significantly impacting the operating costs of the business, the overall operating costs of the business, which are unfortunately leaving some of the other areas less money to spend in different channels or different KPIs. So it's very interesting now as a business to almost look at that as a starting point, and to really understand, are you maximizing your staff hours, working out their working hours, your full-time, part-time staff, to the best earning potential of the business. I think once you've got your staff with the right education, being able to perform the right treatments at the right time, and really being able to yield that diary well, and being able to make sure that we're in the best possible position to be able to turn over as much revenue as we need to, or we would
Yeah.
like to. All the other things will then start to fall in line after that. But I think it's one we have to look at now, just because of the world we're currently living in.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point because actually, when you look at it, it's 40 to 50-ish% of your business, isn't it? Is
Yes.
paying your payroll in a spa. So actually, it's interesting that you've turned it around. I guess when I was doing it, we'd newly opened. We weren't. I was at the spa at South Lodge last time. We were looking at. It was all about driving the revenue at that point. How are we growing the business very quickly? But you're right. There's a really important on looking at that payroll cost when it is such a big chunk of your cost.
Absolutely. And it's so important, isn't it? Because our people are our business. So it's really important to be able to give the staff perks and benefits that we need to a team, and be able to put that personal development plan in place, and be able to develop and motivate our team, because it comes back to staff retention, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As we know at the moment in the industry, being able to get therapists is really tough, so it's important to make sure we're looking after those that we have. So it's not that we're necessarily trying to cut costs in payroll. They are a significant part of the business. But there's also an argument to say here, we need to understand those costs and be able to yield the team well, so that they're in the right place at the right time to deliver the turnover expected. And then all of these other areas can then be identified after that, to be able to make sure we're doing that to the best ability of the business.
Yeah, totally. I've actually seen people starting to look at the revenue generated per therapist as well, to see how that is working out. Are there gaps there, for instance, as well? So there's lots you can drill down to, isn't there? But I think definitely looking at the payroll.
And I think when you look, as you mentioned about rev per therapist, that always comes back to the commercial reception training we were talking about last time, making sure that we've identified who the customer is that's coming into the business and what they need from our business these days. You know, given the world that we're in at the moment, what are people looking for? Are our teams trained to be able to provide the treatments that they're looking for? Are they working at the right times so that we're really able to make sure that we've got the ability to offer the right treatments that are being promoted to those guests? And then, of course, if we're doing that well, our yield or rev per therapist is going to be significant. And that links back to the subject you were talking about in terms of retail sales, and being able to retail from those treatments as well.
Exactly. Oh, good old retail sales. One of the key,
I know.
you must get asked this question all the time, and I'm sure all the brands do. It was every
Mm.
time I see a spa manager, it always creeps in. What is your retail percentage? It's like the hot topic, isn't
Mm.
it? We never seem to
It
get,
is.
particularly further than it, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I've got a slide on this, Sarah. You'll love
Yes,
it. You'll
absolutely.
absolutely saying, Sarah, a topic that's close to both of our hearts is retail sales and the importance or the opportunity for our salon and spa partners to really drive additional revenue through their retail sales within their business. Now, these stats that I've pulled here are a mixture of our UK stats and global stats within our industry, and also tapping into the resources that are out there, such as Klein and the other really good places we can go to for additional data. So in the UK at the moment, we're finding there's a massive, as there always has been, a really massive opportunity to help drive home care recommendations and retail sales with all of our salon spa partners. On average, we're finding anything less than 8% would be considered as room for improvement.
Yeah.
It's okay, but we can be doing better. And I think what we're seeing on average in the UK at the moment is between 9 and 15% would be a normal retail to treatment conversion.
Yeah.
And that's not just happening, it's both sides of this, the operators and the brands working really hard together to drive home care recommendations. Saying that, we do have partners that are doing well over 20%, where we've got really
Wow.
good, clear strategic plans in place, where it's an important part of that business's objectives.
Mhm.
So looking at sort of how we do this, I think one of the first thing to identify is in the individual locations is what is your top 10 and or top 20 products in your particular business? Do they match the treatments that you're currently delivering? Or are your treatment top 10, top 20 treatments different and not related to the top 10, top 20 retail products? They should obviously align. So there's a massive opportunity here when we go back to that sort of commercial reception training to understand where our treatment revenue is coming from, and looking and analysing the business to see, are the retail sales coming from that or from a different resource? If they're not coming from treatment, there is a massive opportunity to take, if you like, core retail and significantly increase that if we're driving it connected to the treatments.
Yeah.
As we know, or as we're seeing in the UK, for many partners, sort of 60 plus percentage of their retail sales are coming from their top 10-ish retail SKUs. So it's really important to also understand what they are and to have a different stock management plan for your top 10 or top 20 SKUs.
Mhm.
If partners need help with this is where you can lean on your brands to help with stock management, par levels, to make sure that we're putting in place a system whereby we never run out of those items that are making such significant impact on your turnover and your bottom line. So lean on your brands to be able to support you with that. But where this comes in is really reaching out to the brands to look at confidence building training for our therapists. Many therapists are not overly confident following sort of their time at college, coming into the industry on how to engage with customers, how to understand different types of customers, look at body language, look at listening, questioning and listening skills. All of these tools give a therapist additional confidence to then go to the next step, which would be making the recommendations, which is backed up by the product knowledge training from the brands. We go one step further in that we have commercial sales courses, and I imagine many of the brands would do. So really reaching out to your brand partner for things like confidence building, product knowledge, commercial sales training, but also the consultation process. What does the actual client journey look like? How aware are the home care recommendations being made? How are we working with the front of house team or the reception team to work on extending or closing that sale at the end of the guest experience before the customer leaves? And from our side, from brand sides, being able to tie in commercial reception or retail incentives connected to the KPIs set by that particular location. I think for brands, if we understand the targets and the KPIs, particularly in this category, if we're looking at retail, that the spa or salon is looking to achieve, we can then tie the incentives in. So we're both working towards the same set of goals. And then our job is also to support the spa manager in motivating and communicating that to the team. We're finding alongside, I suppose, the top two areas that we're finding at the moment most in need is treatments and treatment bookings. So the commercial reception training we discussed last time is key. And then the second part is this element that we all get very excited about, which is the potential for commercial retail sales done well if supported both sides. And I think this is an area that we can all work much more closely on to achieve really good results.
Yeah, and I think it is that kind of the relationship you maintain with the brand you work with, because it is things like stock levels. You know, I've been to spas where you're having an experience, you go out, you look at the retail, they talk about a product and then they don't have it. And I think that's looking at your stock levels, how often are you ordering? What is the lead time? Making sure that when you have your team trained and you set them free to go and boost your retail sales, that you have the stock. I think that's one of the things that people worry about, holding too much stock. But actually, when you do know your top 10 retail products and you know what your team are keen and passionate to sell, and you're running an incentive, sell 10 of these cleansers, having enough of that stock in place, or knowing what the turnaround time is once you place an order, is part of that relationship in my mind. It's not only growing the business, but making sure that you've got the products there to sell, the right products at the right time. Have you got your Christmas gifts in ordering already now, knowing that it takes time to get, there's limited number of gifts? Have you prepped in advance and worked together as a team to maximize that as well?
Absolutely. And I think the final part of the equation on top of that is looking at the visual merchandising and the journey. So the guest journey for retail. And I'd say all brands, I think we can't hand on heart say everything is perfect all the time. There's always room for improvement, but really looking at that retail journey and all the touch points and reaching out to your partners to be able to put the right journey in place for that particular location is key. So again, do reach out, because I think there's great things that can be done collaboratively together to really enhance the guest experience and make sure that visual merchandising journey adds extra benefit to that, which is run by the therapist, the reception team, the people side of the business.
Yeah, and as we said, even when we were talking about guest capture rate, is making sure that your retail starts even before they get to the spa, not just waiting until they're in the spa. You can start the retail much sooner.
Absolutely. I've got another KPI, another question that we're being asked all the time in terms of cost of sales. I think depending again on the experience of the spa director, we're asked all the time about cost of sales, and that there's a real mixed understanding of exactly what that is. And I think part of the education process that we're going through with our partners at the moment is really understanding properly what treatment cost of sales are.
Yeah.
And as you and I know, it covers everything that's included in delivering treatments within that particular facility. So it looks
Yes.
at things like the products that are used,
Yes.
the consumables, which are a topic that we'll come back to in a moment, because well, in fact, let's talk about it now. The consumables, unfortunately, at the moment are things that that they're a cost. And we
Yeah.
know in many locations with many therapists, perhaps far more is used than needs to be used. But also there's an opportunity, also from a sustainability point of view, to choose different solutions which might help to reduce the cost of sales and also work on the impact on your sustainability goals within that particular location. What we're finding in the UK at the moment, we're working with many of our partners, and we're working closer to the 8%. Although we do have some properties that are working 13 and a few that are slightly over that in terms of what their cost of sales totally are looking like. But I think part of our role as a spa partner is to work with all of our operators to go to really analyse what that cost of sale is looking like for them, so that we can deliver the highest possible level of treatments, but also being able to protect this cost, because it can be wildly inflated if you have therapists that are particularly heavy-handed with their products and using far more than the guided or the recommended amount, can totally blow these out of the water. So again, one of the little bits of training that we do when we're out doing technical training, our spa trainers not only are delivering 5-star standards, client care, the technical training attached to a treatment protocol, but also we're reminding therapists on every single training session how much of each product should be used, so that we can make sure that we stick to the recommended COGS for that particular treatment. But also brainstorming and exploring with spa managers what are the alternatives to paper couch roll, cotton wool. Are there alternatives that can be used that are better for the environment and better for the bottom line as well?
Yeah, I mean, I can always, when you're laying
So
on a
I
massage
think
couch and you can hear the person pumping away as they're pumping out massage oil on you, and then you become so slippery, and all I do when I lie there is think, oh, that's a lot of massage oil you're using there.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think also part of our role is to work with our spa directors on different treatments for different. And coming back to the treatment mix we were talking about right at the beginning, if we know a particular location is working a lot with the third-party spa packages, spa companies, as you mentioned, they cost to be able to drive revenue in through that channel. And if you're offering your top spa treatment with your highest COGS in that particular channel, your profitability is going to be corroded and eaten away at. So if your business model is to utilize those as a revenue source, speak to your spa brand providers to see if there are signature treatments or unique treatments that can be made for that channel, which have a slightly lower COGS but can still offer an amazing experience, so that you're helping to protect your bottom line. So I
That's
think
brilliant.
these comes back to understanding the key KPIs at the beginning, and being able, from a brand's point of view, we can't always do everything, but if we understand which are the important ones at this time for that particular location, then of course as a brand partner we want to make sure that we can help. So it's having those conversations to go, how can we help?
That's brilliant. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. If you're finding that you're going through third-party booking agents and you need to look at what treatments you're offering in a spa day, and you're right, we can come to you or the brand, whichever brand they're working with, and say, what are the best for COGS? Which ones should I be putting in these packages, and which ones do I want to be saving for my hotel guest? Who maybe wants to do a higher price point treatment, and then you can, but that's also why you need to look at your mix of treatments, don't you? Because obviously your costs are higher with a facial generally than a body treatment, versus if you're looking at your nails, which is different, but they all have different costs to them. If you're doing more of one treatment, you can be increasing your cost quite significantly, and that's when you need to look at your spa revenue mix as to where you're driving your direction for your revenue, aren't you?
Absolutely. And yeah, I think this is an area that we can explore a lot with
Yes.
our salon and spa managers, and particularly at this time of year. We're all in 2026 planning at in some part of that journey. For some people, they'll just be at the beginning of it. Other people are well into all their 2026 planning. This is really the time that you should be leaning on your brands, and actually we should be doing this collaboratively together to look at, what we all expect to be happening in 2026.
Mhm.
And if we understand better what people are looking for in terms of their plans for next year, this is where we can start doing those brainstorming sessions together to really be able to make a difference for next year.
Mm.
The other one that I was thinking that might be worth looking at is average cost per treatment. And again, we get asked about this a lot with all of our with many of our partners in terms of what goes into the average cost of treatment. So if you're looking at your P&L and you're working with your finance department, what goes into that cost and what sits outside within the P&L. So looking at the cost of treatments, obviously you've got your product, you've got all your consumables, then you've got things like the laundry costs and operating expenses. Now, in the world that we're living in at the moment, we know things like the operating expenses, heating, lighting, water, all of those, both personally and within the professional channels, have increased significantly. So
Mm.
it's really looking again at how we can work together. Some of these costs we can't impact, some of these things we can. But from a sustainability point of view, if there's an opportunity to work with your brands and allow us all to come in and help do training for the teams, there are ways that we can reduce these, even though we can't impact the cost from the supplier of each of these
Yeah.
channels. So what as therapists or receptionists or the business can we do to reduce the water that's being used within the business? How can we reduce the electric and so on? And actually although these are costs that affect the treatment COGS, actually there are things we can do together, albeit that prices have gone up, to actually look at how we can bring these things down. And where we were
Oh.
talking before about personnel costs, potentially if you're an independent business, it might be rent, loan, bank charges. All these other things are a significant cost that need to be factored into your average cost per treatment. But there are ways to be able to look at each of these things to be able to reduce these costs on the business.
I'm always surprised at how many people don't necessarily look at the cost of their laundry and go down to creating SOPs and protocols and saying, well, this is your couch setup. These are the towels that you have. This is how the layout, down to the treatment. How many pairs of mitts do you need in a treatment? Do you use a headband or not? It's all of those bits can actually add up quite quickly if they're not if you're not haven't got a control on it. And I think the laundry one I always find really interesting that you go into a treatment room and 10 different treatment rooms can have 10 different couch layouts with 10 different usages of even just something like that, which should be part of the treatment protocol really at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I know you've talked to Kay from Scrummy recently. There are people with a great amount of data in this field that can really offer good, sound information and tried and tested statistics on the options that are out there. So it's definitely worth listening to some of your other podcasts and sessions in terms of being able to take that knowledge with different professionals that at least you can consider. If it's right for your business, great. If not, at least you've explored the opportunities that are available and out there.
Yeah,
Oh, and
totally.
advertising, sorry, forgot that one.
Yeah.
So Sarah, they were from our perspective, our top KPIs that we're asked about often when we're out on the field. But I think, coming from a place of being an operator as well as a spa brand, we have, I wouldn't say definitive examples, but we are very aware of the different KPIs and the different channels that may be of interest. And for us, I think there's an opportunity to be able to explore this with all of our partners. But from today's point of view, I suppose my leaving part to this is to encourage people to reach out to their brands, whoever they might be, and really sit down and have some good strategic meetings between now and the end of the year, looking at and having alignment together and good collaboration on where the business is looking to go for next year, which are the key KPIs. And if you're not sure of the KPIs, then start the conversations and we can always guide. And once we then know those KPIs, it's really working together on how we can help the business achieve those. And I think that's the joy that we have when we're doing our job, is to be able to come away and know that we've been able to help someone achieve the best, both top line and bottom line, and be that extra resource for the business.
I love that. I love that as a leaving thought. What I'm really loving about our conversations is the fact that it is a collaboration. It's asking brands, whether it's yourselves at Comfort Zone or the brand they're using, to work together, because if the business is successful, that supports the brand as well with raising their awareness with the guests and things. So I love this idea of collaborating, looking at KPIs and then working out together how you can drive the business forwards. And also, on a personal note, I know how lonely it can be as a spa manager and a spa director, and finding out where you find this information. You believe everyone's doing 10-20% retail, but actually until you ask a brand and actually say, well, what are people achieving, then you're kind of trying to pitch your business with no data. So I think it's so important to work with brands, work with other spa managers, and build KPIs that are relevant to your business, and then looking at how you drive them. So I'm really passionate. I could carry on talking, but
Absolutely.
Tracy, thank you so much, because I could go on and
I
on
know.
and on.
Pleasure. Well, you and I, we can put the world to rights at another time, but it's always lovely to share a little bit and
Yes.
give an insight as to how we work. But we're always here to help.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Sarah. See you soon.